and welcome to another episode of Horror Movie Night. This week, we are talking about a pick that Kyle gave us. So,
why?
There's that. It's Psycho 2.
It's an anniversary.
It is an anniversary.
Yeah.
So here's what I'll say about the Psycho 2 of it all. I think I have always found this to be a very good movie.
Mm-hmm. I loved it. This was my first watch.
Yeah, I've debated if it's a horror movie night pick for 10 years, which is impressive because we're only 8 years old. But so this will go over your head a little bit, Kyle. Obviously, you know the existence of this, but Scott can back me up on this. This would be a perfect Reddit Horror Club pick. Not a home run horror movie night pick. And I only say that because, man, is this like a discussion, deep dive, like so much to pick apart here from like a very intellectual stance. And look, I love our show. I love the three of us. We aren't intellectuals. We like to pretend. We like to pretend we are. But come on now.
I don't think it's pretending.
Yeah. No, admittedly, you're right. All of my notes are excitement over why this is the perfect sequel to Psycho, which unfortunately would end up being pretty heavy in the educational. No.
Yeah, well, I have no problem
word.
with that. Like, every once in a while, our listeners have to get some culture.
Mm-hmm. Well, this feels actually like Prom Night 2-y to me because it was very like fun in its presentation, but it's fun because it's also a sequel to Psycho, which has this gravitas about it that needs to
Are
be
you trying to say there's gravitas to Prom Night? Because that is that's a hot take.
Not the prom. No, that's the difference. Is that Prom Night 2 is a superior superior film.
Are you saying that Psycho 2 is a superior film?
Tarantino says that.
He does prefer it, yes.
Yeah, I don't think that it's a superior film because I don't think that it has its merit without the original. Do you know what I mean? Like, Prom Night 2 is a superior film because it can stand alone. I don't think Psycho 2 could necessarily stand alone.
And I actually think that Psycho 2 is a painfully underrated movie. Like, there are a lot of people who will not even acknowledge this sequel, where it's like, this is absolutely best case scenario when you are remaking a classic film almost 20 years after that classic film was released.
They said that Norman got out after 22 years in The Clink. And so I was like, was it 60 or 61? But that would make sense if Robert Bloch wrote Psycho 2 in 1982. They used that as the they completely threw away what he had written, but
they were like,
I've had the Psycho 2 book forever. I've never read it. I want to crack it open and read it because the premise of the book sounds fucking awesome.
But I think that the premise of this movie is way more interesting.
It's way more interesting. I think that his is almost like a meta because I think he struggled with the Psycho film adaptation of his book, which is weird because it's a pretty faithful adaptation with the exception of Norman Bates. Like, Norman Bates,
that's a pretty big fucking exception.
well, no, like in the sense that like Norman Bates in the book is described way more as like not like Leatherface, but like a large, unattractive,
but,
gives you
like
creepy vibes kind of guy. Yeah. Versus, basically like
Perkins.
Anthony Perkins is a good-looking dude. Like, even in this movie, all these years later, like, the thing that shocked me about this movie, even I've seen this movie probably 4 or 5 times. I really think this is
I was about to ask how many times you guys
damn
have
good
seen this.
movie.
Yeah, I can't believe this is first for you, Scott. That's very exciting.
It's because I like Psycho, but I don't know. I've watched now Psycho 1, Psycho 2, and Psycho 4 at the beginning, and 2 of them were for this show. I've watched Psycho maybe 3 times in my life. I think that it's it's an important film, but it's not like if I'm gonna watch a black and white horror thriller, it's not gonna be Psycho. It's gonna be Carnival of Souls. It's just
right. Yeah, fair.
It's just fair. I have a different. It's not my go-to taste, but I really enjoyed this watch because I had like an inkling, and I think I talk about this pretty regularly on the show, if not the actual episode, the What Did We Watch? The thing that I like about a movie is when I get a vibe and I'm like, there's a crossroads where the plot can either go the safe route, which is usually in horror also the less expensive production route, or they can do something that's a little bit more off the wall. And I think that this movie is, yes, 40 years old at this point. It was a first watch for me, and I specifically did not read the Wikipedia or the IMDb until I was done, because I wanted to go in fresh. And that was a great watch. It was basically like watching the movie 40 years ago, basically, because you're hyped because it's Anthony Perkins back in the role after 20 some years, and then it's a surprise with the twists, and there are some sweet twists in this movie.
But you know what? I'm going to pick a word that you said distinctly though. Sweet. Like I found myself being moved emotionally at points in this movie, specifically just the idea of I'm gonna go real hard into something fucking dark in a second. But have either of you ever watched the movie Little Children?
No.
Okay.
Little Monsters.
So Little Children is
right there with you, Cal.
Little Children is a tough fucking movie to watch. So the film follows who's the dude who played Freddy Krueger in the remake?
Jackie Earle Haley.
Jackie Earle Haley. It follows this man who was arrested for pedophilia, and he's released back into the community after like 20 years of psychological help, and he's trying to be a good person, but the whole movie is how the town refuses to accept him. And it does this really powerful thing of like, he is a bad person in the wrong. He did something horrible. But like throughout the movie, you start to feel sympathy for this person who's really trying to like make amends and move forward, and the town won't allow it to happen. And there are these moments, specifically like when he's getting fucked with in the restaurant, that like really hit me, because it's like, and I think it works because Anthony Perkins is such a likable person that you're like, he seems like he's really trying to just live a normal life, and you get like really fucking like, I was getting like worked up. And he's such a talented actor where he has these moments where you look at his face and it's like, part of it's like he wants to cry in that moment, and the other part is he wants to snap in that moment. And it really is phenomenal how well he performs his role in those specific scenes, where I'm like, this dude should have been so much more than what his career actually allowed him to be, which was like a dude who got cast in a bunch of schlocky horror films because one time he played Norman Bates. Yeah.
This was going to be a TV movie, and he was
with
like,
Christopher Walken.
Yeah,
they wanted
Christopher Walken
to play Norman Bates.
They were like, if you come back, it'll be an actual studio film, and he did. But here's the thing:
the role was killer. He was like Norman Bates was. I wrote on my Letterboxd review, it's like he's doing the work. Like he's working he's working hard on himself. He's trying.
So have you guys? So you were talking about that. What was that movie called with Jackie?
Little Children.
Little Children. Have you guys ever heard of the movie The Woodsman, starring Kevin Bacon?
Yes,
I mean, not The Woodsman, directed by Kyle Cookta.
I heard about it after.
It has nothing to do with the concept of and conceit of The Woodsman by Kyle Cookta. And I don't even know why the fuck I watched it in like 2006 or something, 2007. But it's because it's not my thing at all. But it's Kevin Bacon is a recently released child sex offender, and he goes back to a town, and it's basically like the movie is kind of a character study about how he tries to start his life over. He can't live too close to a school. Obviously, he can't have interactions with a lot of people. But he befriends this woman, and they start a relationship. And he's like grappling with whether or not to reoffend, and it feels very similar to Little Children in that sense. Definitely not what I like to watch, though.
No, and like Little Children is a film that I think if you're a specific type of film fan who likes to have your emotions challenged, which when it came out in 2006 I absolutely was. Now it's like my whole vibe is like, give me a show where everybody loves each other and every single episode is just how great and loving they can be towards each other.
Are we talking about Ted Lasso already today? Because
Ted Lasso, we're talking Shrinking, we're even talking about Parenthood to a certain extent. Like it's just like
that's emotion porn. And that's what it's called, emotion porn. But there's some of what you're talking about in these character driven like dramas happening here, just with some slasher and great effects and like some really funny schlocky characters.
Tombs.
Toomey? Like the hotel owner,
Dennis Franz
manager, who was fucking great. Was it Dennis Franz or was it not Dennis Franz?
I'm pretty sure it was Dennis Franz.
Okay.
Was that not? If that wasn't Dennis Franz, then Dennis Franz has a twin running around Hollywood.
Carly and I had the exact same conversation about the Tilly sisters when we watched the Body Snatchers episode. We didn't know we had the same conversation until we finished our conversation while watching Psycho 2, and we were like, oh, we already done this exact thing. Like, we've had the same conversation.
Well, say my one complaint, if I'm gonna throw any complaint out there, so obviously I've heard a couple stories doing any bit of research that like Meg Tilly maybe didn't have the greatest experience working on this movie.
Or the worst experience of her entire career.
Yeah, either one. That there's a body double for the nude scene with her, which is like the most unnecessarily confusing nude scene I think I've ever seen in a movie, because it's literally like a millisecond.
They had to show some tasteful side boob. It's 1983. They had to up the boobs and they had to up the kills. And so they did.
It was one of those things where I'm like, why is this even here? Because like it's so quick and so fast that you're just like, you might as well have just cut it entirely. Like, you hired a full body double for a millisecond of a boob shot in a movie that really is too artistic to need gratuitous nudity in it.
Are you saying that boobs aren't art? Because I would argue that they are.
Fair. I mean, I would also say the other strike to this movie is just opening the movie with the shower scene from Psycho.
I was very sus. I was watching this and I'm like, this is some shit. Meg Tilly grew up to be an actor, but she never watched TV or movies growing up. She wasn't allowed. Yeah. Which how does that happen?
Well, because that's kind of what led to her having such a terrible time here, was that she didn't understand who Anthony Perkins was, thought that she was the bigger name in the movie, and didn't understand why everyone was fawning over Anthony. And I guess Anthony Perkins overheard her complain about that, and it hurt his feelings.
And
he asked for her to be removed.
Yeah, but she had already done almost all of her scenes.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, you can't fire someone after they do the bulk of their scenes, dude.
I don't read.
It's like a real Streisand effect kind of thing going on, where he's like, you know. And then she got a fucking Oscar nod for something like the next year, right? Or 2 years from there.
Well, I think she got award nominations for both this and the movie she did after.
Agnes of the Gods or something. Agnes of God.
Something like that. It's tough because I feel for both parties in that situation, right? Like her getting like the cold shoulder from like the star of the movie and like that
and
sucks.
the director,
like that all sucks, and I totally get it. I also see it from Anthony Perkins' view, where it's like, you've been down on your luck. You're being brought back for this movie, and then you find out that your co-star not only doesn't know who the fuck you are, but is questioning why anyone gives a shit about you. Like, I could understand.
You're like, this is why I did not want to come back.
Yeah, I could understand being a little catty and cold after that.
Okay, fair. Because I thought that he was 100% in the wrong, but you guys have added a little nuance to it. So I appreciate
and I
it.
Maybe
only
his
say that
reaction
because
his reaction was maybe not the best, but
No.
I think his feelings were valid.
And the only reason, honestly, the only reason why I'm even remotely trying to defend Anthony Perkins is that, like, by all other accounts, it seems like he was a very sweet person. So I feel like if he was that way, I think it has a lot more to do with, like, an emotional hurt that he's reacting on than, like, I love Bill Murray, but anytime that I hear a story about Bill Murray being a dick on set, I'm like, yeah, that's just Bill Murray.
Yeah,
like, that's just, he's a douche. Like, that's what he is. But, like, Anthony Perkins, all things considered, everyone seems to really speak highly of him except for Meg Tilly. Yeah. So I think she just cut a nerve.
Hey, Kyle, I saw you sipping on something.
I am. I'm sipping on a beer called Midnight Mary, mainly because it has like a Mama Bates looking.
But also, Mary is Meg Tilly's character's name, so it's perfect.
Wow, that's very helpful. Guess you forgot her name.
I have a little something too.
Yeah,
I needed milk. But she was talking because mothers and also Meg Tilly drinking milk like a fiend in that one scene. But then I also didn't want to just drink some like almond milk, so I got the almond Baileys, like almond milk Baileys, the vegan Baileys.
Yeah.
And so because she's like, let me make you an Irish coffee, and I'm like, well, you could easily make an Irish coffee with this and some coffee. I just don't drink coffee.
Right,
I drink
there
mother's milk though.
Yeah. Carly had the funniest thing that I remember her saying in a long time when they were exhuming Mrs. Bates. She just goes, I guarantee insurance doesn't cover that intervention. I was like...
Fantastic.
Because we got to a point where we're like, why are they taking the body? Like, what's going on? And it's just to show him that she's dead. And she goes, oh, no. There's no way. There's no way that that's covered.
Well,
it's so funny.
Well, and so we haven't really talked. There's a good chance that a lot of people listening to this don't know what this movie is or why we're talking about it.
Do we want to be like spoiler free? Are we
No,
gonna do
we'll
that?
start. Look, they know what they're tuning in for. But if they think that they're tuning, I'll say this:
I recommend that you watch the movie. Like,
if you tuned in because you thought Psycho 2, that's got to be garbage, and my favorite podcast is going to shit all over it, you're wrong, and you should very much watch the movie because it's very good. But the very quick, short elevator pitch of this movie is that it's 22 years after the original Psycho. Norman Bates has been fully psychologically fixed. He is no longer schizophrenic. He no longer believes that he is part his mother, part himself, and he is being re-released into society because he is just kind Norman now and not evil, potentially dangerous Norman. But the town and the families of the victims are really not digging this. He's trying to live a normal life. He builds up a relationship with a waitress that works at a restaurant where he's a chef. But throughout this period, he keeps getting creepy phone calls claiming to be his mother, trying to get him to kill. And what is slowly being clear throughout the movie, at first you think, oh no, he's losing his mind again, but it becomes very clear that someone is fucking with him to try to make him break. And then there's a couple twists and turns that you can get into there, but at one point Norman says that he actually believes that while the woman who raised him is dead, that he doesn't think that was his true mother and that the phone calls are coming from his real mother. What we ultimately end up finding out is that Meg, the girl from the waitress that he's been dating,
her name's Mary,
Meg Tilly playing Mary is actually the daughter of the woman who's been doing the prank calls.
Whose sister was murdered in the first movie?
Yeah, it's Loomis. So I think it's their brother was the detective that gets killed.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, Sam Loomis is, I'm pretty sure, the name of the detective that
and then,
Norman slashes.
But her maiden name's Crane.
Yeah.
And then which doesn't matter. I just
Miriam
like
Crane.
Marion Crane.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's their relation. Which it took me like an extra couple mind steps. It was probably all the Doritos, but like a couple extra seconds to be like, who? Like, who are we talking about?
Yeah, it's a lot, but it basically Mary has fallen in love with Norman, sees that he's a good dude, and is trying to
fell in
stop.
love with him. I thought that she just thought I didn't get the love out of that. I just thought that she felt
okay.
bad for him.
She felt bad for him. She realized that like this is not right what we're doing, and she's trying to stop it, but the mom won't stop, and the mom essentially snaps and is the killer, and we think that we have mostly a happy ending here.
Okay, well, can we, after you finish this, go through who we think killed whom?
Yes, sure.
Okay,
we can do that.
I need clarifications.
I will try.
I mean, I personally don't think that Mary killed anybody. I think that everything was being done by
I don't think that Mary killed anybody either.
Yeah, agreed.
But her mom Lila, she killed that teenager, right?
She killed the teenager. She killed Dennis Franz. Like she killed a couple people.
I don't know if that was her or was that the mom. Was that the actual mom?
Oh, that's right. Because so
maybe Lila didn't kill anybody. So Lila killed nobody. Mary killed nobody.
All right.
So what's funny is that I got confused because there's this whole thing.
I'll read it right now. I'm going to read directly from the wiki page because this might solve everything.
Okay.
So after it's confirmed that Lila and Mary have been causing all the issues, they determine, it says, the police incorrectly determine that Mary committed all of the murders and arrest her. Later, Emma Spool, another waitress from the diner, visits Norman and informs him that she is his real mother. Mrs. Bates was her sister and adopted Norman as an infant when Irma was institutionalized. Emma reveals that she was the real murderer, having killed anyone who tried to harm her son. In response, Norman kills her and carries the body to Mother's room and begins talking to himself in her voice as the mother personality has once again taken control of his mind.
Yes.
So you're correct. Emma has caused pretty much all of the murders, except for me. I guess you're right. Maybe the teenagers, but I don't think so.
I think that you're right.
That's all Emma.
I think that the Wikipedia is right. That the teenagers, Toomey, Lila, and is that everybody?
That's everybody.
That's everybody.
That's everyone.
It's funny because the IMDb. This had so much IMDb trivia, and it fucked me up because I was reading it, and this one person goes, "Oh man, so I get why Meg Tilly didn't like the Psycho fans in 1983 because it's 2023 and I don't like the Psycho fans, because they're like very push their glasses up their nose and be pedantic little fucks about stuff." But one of them, one of the pieces of trivia said, this movie has the most killers in any slasher movie in history, with 4 killers. And I'm like, what? I don't think so. If anything, there's 2. But no.
Also, have they ever seen a Giallo film? If they think that is the amount of killers that anything has, like,
wait, are you trying to tell me that something that someone was saying on the internet turned out to not be accurate?
Yes, I know.
Also, I pushed my
first
glasses
time
up
ever.
when I said Giallo. So.
You gotta pay for the Patreon to see Kyle do that joke. His physical comedy is Patreon only. Patreon.com/HMM podcast if you want to be part of that.
That's true.
I'm curious. I will do the work in advance. I own all 4 of. Well, I actually own 5 Psycho movies because at one point Scream Factory was selling that remake for like $5 on a Halloween sale, and I said, "All right."
The remake, I ended up falling asleep, and I never returned to it. But I like Vince Vaughn. I don't necessarily like,
I think that's a bigger hot take than anything you've said the entire episode. No one likes Vince Vaughn. Vince Vaughn doesn't like Vince Vaughn.
But what I was gonna say is, Psycho 3 is a direct sequel to this. Like it literally, and it's directed by Anthony Perkins. So I'm kind of curious to like revisit it because I remember it being fine.
You guys said you watched 4 for the podcast?
We watched 4, which was a TV movie that you could totally live a happy life not ever watching.
It is definitely not the worst thing I've watched for this show.
I got the triple feature DVD though, so I mean,
well then you're good. You're good to go. But yeah, 3 I remember being perfectly fine, but it's probably the most slasher film inspired of the Psycho franchise, because it's like, 1986. You know what I mean? Like, it is in the thick of the slasher film genre, and it also co-stars Jeff Fahey. But the one thing I do remember about that movie is that now Emma Spool is the voice that he hears in his head from that point. Like, they literally continue it from that point, and people are trying to find Emma, and like it literally is a direct, like, a month after this movie ends sequel to like what happened. So we'll see. It was the lowest grossing film in the franchise, which doesn't say much. They released,
I was about to say,
3 in theaters and a TV movie.
Yeah. There we go.
This was written by Tom Holland. Like, that's another big heavy hitter thing to throw in.
And shot by Dean Cundy. It's like you have all these like horror maestros in their own right in some capacity, and it really is. I mean, when I make that comparison to Prom Night 2, I mean so in its like inventiveness of like what they do. Like, there's this incredible wallpaper scene that they like pan this very eccentric wallpaper to find the peephole that Norman looks through, or Emma looks through, somebody looks through.
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Was he watching Meg Tilly shower, or was it her own fucking mom?
So that's or was it her own mom? Yeah, that's true too.
Or was it his mom? Yeah, like it could be any number of people. It probably was actually his mom.
That's like little things like that sort of lead up to like the confusion that Norman feels, that then we all have to feel too. I thought was really neat. And then there's the inventiveness of some of the shots are really fun, because in the original we're not in the house really all that often. And then we get to be in the house a lot more in this one, and I thought that was a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Put down that smartphone and listen to me. I'm Matthew Milligan, professional musician and lifelong Weird Al fan. Each week, I'm joined by professional podcaster and close personal friend Matt Kelly to take a dive off the deep end into the vast career of pop culture icon Weird Al Yankovic on our show, Weird Algorithm. Along with some very special guests from the worlds of music and comedy, we tackle every song, every television appearance, and every bit of sketch comedy Al has produced in chronological order, covering the good old days of My Bologna and Eat It, the fun zone of tacky and white and nerdy, and everything in between. As we go, we're ranking the songs, albums, and music videos in the hopes of creating the ultimate guide to a career bigger than the biggest ball of twine in Minnesota. So the next time you're having one of those days, stuck in a traffic jam, wondering why does this always happen to me, just kick off your sneakers and stick around for a while, because we've got it all on Weird Algorithm, available wherever you get your podcasts. And now you know. Was that enough references?
It's a good psychological thriller, which raises the question, Kyle, what other movie would you watch when you were done watching Psycho 2?
So this isn't going to be a popular one to watch with it, I don't necessarily think, but I would watch Eaten Alive. Tobe Hooper's Eaten Alive. It has this theatrical stage presence thing that I think Psycho 2 has a lot of too.
Hell yeah.
It just has this.
Is it on the same fucking Universal backlot? I would laugh my ass off if it was.
It
might be just adjacent. Oh, also speaking of the backlot, there's this one shot that they show of the house in the motel, and the physical backdrop is like the biggest fucking thing I've ever seen. I'm like, this is insane. You know, because the house is outside, so it's like to have this massive backdrop with as wide of a shot as they do for this house, this perspective thing is crazy. But I would choose Eaten Alive. It's a little more sadistic, but it's fun.
Scott, I don't think you'll take mine, so I'll let you go next.
I'm gonna go with Scream 2 because all I could do when I was watching this was think about Randy's rules of sequels, because they were based on this. I mean, it really makes it makes so much sense, and I never really thought about that when I have watched Scream 2 in the past, because obviously I'd never watched Psycho 2. Also, it was
it's wild that we haven't done an episode. The only Scream movie we've actually personally done an episode on is 3, which is wild to me.
Yeah,
because I think we could get great episodes out of 2 and 4.
September is listener submitted month if you play your cards right. And send us an email with your suggestions, and probably if it's Scream 2, it's going to get picked. So I also was completely shocked in my stupidity when I watched this and realized Billy Loomis was named after Billy Loomis in this movie, in Scream. Not Dr. Loomis in Halloween,
Loomis.
which is what I thought for.
I mean, I've always thought that too.
When 1996 till now, I literally have thought for the entirety of the Scream franchise that that his name was an homage to Donald Pleasance's character in Halloween, not Psycho 2. Mind blowing.
Yeah.
All right, Matt, what about you?
Either.
I'm going to go with a movie that I really, truly thought that there was a chance Kyle was going to grab. I went with Magic. Just changing out Anthony's here, but another truly great. I actually think that is one of the great psychological thrillers of all time. Like it is, and I think I like it because it feels like it could be a black box theater performance.
Yeah.
Like it is just.
And this does too. This absolutely yes.
Yeah, I mean, like Magic has especially Magic because it's literally just a 2-man show as far as I'm concerned. I know that there's like 1 or 2 other characters that show up, but as far as I'm concerned, that is a 90-minute play between Anthony Hopkins and Burgess Meredith. Having a conversation while Anthony Hopkins loses
As
his
much
mind.
as I love Burgess Meredith, please don't subject me to Magic for the show.
Yeah, Magic. Magic would never work for this podcast because it would just be Kyle and I talking about how brilliant it is, but also having nothing to bring to the table.
No. Luckily, that's the thing. I think that luckily this did have some effect stuff and some fun kills and some fun character things, but it is you were right, Matt. It's kind of on the line.
Yeah.
I have fun talking about it.
It would be doing Magic would be similar to, but not exactly the same as. I want to say, is Pontypool? Is Pontypool the one where it's just a guy alone in the radio station?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a brilliant movie. It's a fantastically made movie. It 100% could be done as a 1-man show on a stage. Not a movie I ever want to discuss on Horror Movie Night because it's so stripped down and simplistic that there's nothing for us to pull from. Yeah. But you should all see Pontypool. So, Kyle, what have you been watching, reading, listening to that you want to tell people to go check out?
Okay, so I saw Evil Dead Rise, which by the time this episode airs probably isn't in the theater, but maybe on a streaming service at some point. I think
fingers crossed for me.
Yeah.
I was going to say, let's start with this because I haven't seen it yet. Is it a must-see in theaters, or is it if you wait for...
I don't think it's a must-see in theaters. I mean, but also here, my theater experience was me at 12:45 on a Wednesday in an empty theater. So
see that's my vibe though.
I was gonna say you're selling it for me in that vibe.
To be honest with you though, yes, that is perfect, and it's perfect for my schedule. It was excellent, but at the same time, I was I could be at home doing work, and I've picked an irresponsible thing. Yeah,
that's why I struggle to see most movies in theaters.
Self-care is irresponsible. Don't do it. Don't take care of yourself. It's disgusting. No, it was a good choice.
Wait, what kind of self-care are we talking about? Are we talking about self-care that you're supposed to go to church and atone for?
Yes, yeah, exactly. Which is
seeing Evil Dead in theaters. It's a demonic movie.
Tomato. The more I sit with it, the more I like it. But here's the thing that I have with it, and I understand that the original trilogy was written by the same guy with the same voice, whatever, right? But the Deadites and the Evil Dead and the Necronomicon and all this stuff is now in the cultural lexicon, especially in horror's cultural lexicon. And to me, women Deadites is sort of like a theme. And it'd be really nice to see a woman writer or director take on some of that. And in this one, it's a lot of motherhood stuff that within the first 20 minutes, I'm like, you're a white dude. Yes, okay, yeah.
But is that their fear of women mothers?
It's it's not Ari Aster level, I hate my mom and I want to, it's not that. But it is at this, and here's the thing, I, as a white male filmmaker, expect and imagine that at some point in time I will write a mother character based on my experiences with mothers. So it's I don't want to invalidate the ability to write that to screen. it just seemed like when we were talking about these emotional, like the emotional beats of it, which existed, like there was some tugs at heartstrings, like that's the whole point. It's like when somebody turns into a demon and then attacks you at your soul, like there has to be some heavy shit. It's not as like black humor as Raimi's trilogy. It's a lot more, I would say, mean, but there's also a ton of gore. Like there's some great nods to both like the Evil Dead series and other horror things. It's the kills are great, like the effects are good, like there's actually more practical effects than I expected, or CGI enhanced practical effects, you know, like stuff built upon, you know, which I appreciated too.
But tasteful CGI or no?
I thought so. Yeah. I mean, there's some sort of like face contortion stuff that like felt a little kind of like old school CGI to me, but at the same time I was like, it's fine. And the more I sit with it, the more I appreciate it. I didn't walk out of there loving it, and I don't love it now, but it was a fun time. Like I enjoyed being there.
Sweet. I cannot wait for it to appear on whatever streaming app it falls down on.
Yeah. It lands right in the
it'll be like my top priority that week. You know what I mean? Like the second I hear like, oh, it's available on Paramount Plus or Peacock, I'll be like, oh fuck yeah, I'll find 2 hours to watch this. But so I'm going to bounce off of that just because the reason why I'm going to pick the thing I'm about to pick kind of ties into proper representation and creating something that feels authentic. I'm only 6 episodes into it, but Ashley Robinson, who's been on our show, I've been doing an Instagram live thing with her every Thursday, and it's been fun. It's just 30 minutes of us shooting the shit about pop culture. And she told me to check out The Owl House based on how much I enjoyed Gravity Falls. So I officially just started that this week.
The Loud House? Is that what you said?
The owl, like a bird, okay. a bird of night. And it is like in 6 episodes, I'm just like, I am so glad that for 3 seasons a show like this existed, where their main character is a bisexual girl whose best friend is gender neutral, and like it's just a charming, cute kid show about a girl who feels like an outcast in the human world and finds a door into a world of witches and magic, and is like learning magic and falling in love with these gender neutral creatures that she's befriended. And it's so wholesome, it's so inclusive, and you can tell that it like really comes from the co-creator, who is a bisexual woman's own experience, writing like how she felt as a child into a children's cartoon. And it's just like, I fucking like, as I feel like sometimes we get really caught up in all the shittiness that has existed in the last like 6 or 7 years, because like it's been shitty. But it's like the flip side is like, we live in a world where for 3 seasons this show was running on Disney Channel for kids who felt like they didn't belong, to have a person speaking on their behalf directly to them that was just straight up non-existent when we were kids looking for TV shows to make us feel accepted. So like, this is again why this is about as political as I ever get on this show, but this is why I'm so in love with what Gen Z will be doing for our future, because they've been given all of the best information on how to be a good person through the thing that at the end of the day speaks to kids more than anything, which is their TV shows, their music. They're being fed on a diet of not really political stuff at the end of the day. You know, like I was on a diet of Rage Against the Machines that for like a year I thought I was an anarchist. But like they're just being fed on like a non-political agenda of just like, these people exist and deserve love. And that's like where change is ultimately going to happen, when it's like, this has nothing to do with party lines, it has everything to do with humanitarianism. And like I am so excited for like seeing this next generation of kids crop up that just like understand this. They don't question it, they don't fight against it. They're just like, yes, I have met people who are they them, I have met people who are trans, I understand what this is, and I will fight for these people because these are people in my lives. Which is what it ultimately comes down to. The thing I always remember John Waters saying: you can't really hate people if you actually leave your town and travel once in a while and meet people who don't look like you.
No fucking kidding. Huh?
Like once you have a personal connection with someone who's different than you, the desire to defend people that are different than you jumps up just that more. But all right, Scott, take us home.
Man, how do I follow that? I really wish you would have ended the episode with that. I watched Metal Lords finally.
Ooh.
And I had a blast watching it. I was very interested in the redemption arc because that was what the whole movie is about. And the fact that I'm restarting my old metal band at the same time as this has happened, as I'm watching it, and the focus of the movie, like the moral of the story is pick people that you care to be around to spend your time with, because if you're going to write music with people, don't do it to write music. Do it because you enjoy their time and you enjoy the creativity with them, and stop worrying about what is and isn't metal or punk, or it's got kind of that SLC punk vibe to it, where it's talking about a lifestyle choice, but how the lifestyle choice is about a mindset and not about what you do with that mindset, if that makes sense. Really loved it, and it did get it was fun how the eventual battle of the bands scene, where they got what they wanted, felt unreal, and then it became unreal. There was that moment where it stops being the reality and becomes the fantasy of the guitar player, and it really sat very well with me, because I thought that it was a very clever way of showing that this isn't 100% what happened, but they still had a really good time playing that set. So I really, really liked it. It was a really fun time.
I mean, not to bring up controversial shit from the past, but just feels so much more authentic than Deathgasm was.
Oh yeah,
in its writing and its characters.
It was because it was definitely written by someone who loves metal. Metalocalypse was written by Brendan Smalls, whatever his last name is. And that dude lives and breathes metal. He's way more metal than I ever could be. And that's why Metalocalypse's jokes hit. That's why it was so beloved. That's why the music fucking rules. I think that Metal Lords has that same energy where the love of the genre shines through without being hey, look at me, hey, wink wink, nudge nudge. You get some fucking sweet but also they're not super obscure cameos. Halford. Everybody knows Ralph Halford. Mm-hmm. I mean, even if you don't know what Anthrax sounds like, or Stormtroopers of Death, you know who Scott Ian is.
Scott Ian somewhere.
He's a cultural icon, and I found it to be charming and yet understated in a very almost British coming of age movie way.
Does Brian Posehn end up in this at any point? Because he feels
surprisingly
he should
no.
I was gonna say all these people that you're naming are
but Brian Posehn, it would have been too meta to have in it, if that makes sense. Because he's one step removed
you're talking
from
about these references.
Brian Posehn talks about being metal, and this movie talks about being metal. So having someone who talks about being metal come in the movie and talk about being metal might have been a bridge too far for them, and I really love that they were serious about it.
Yeah,
and I love that of all places, the movie came from a guy who's big foot in the door, was writing, producing, directing, and co-creating Game of Thrones, and then was all right, you can write your first film, and he's I want to write Metal Lords. I want to kind of rules.
Basically, it's a teen comedy just starring metalheads.
Yeah.
One metalhead, actually. Well, one person who looks the part, and then his best friend who he has dragged along to play drums in their metal band called Skullfucker, which is so hilariously over the top metal, and I just loved that.
Something else that is awesome is
Psycho 2.
1983 Psychos 2, as picked by Kyle. Tune in next week for another 80s film that has its awesome moments, I think.
In the last 10 minutes.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.